The last war begins. The stars above Nova Terra were quiet. Too quiet. Commander. Elias stood on the balcony of the last human fortress, staring at the sky. Behind him, the distant hum of failing shield generators echoed through the cold air. Smoke rose from the city. Fire still burned where the Varan drones had passed through only days before. Nova Terra was the final human colony. The others were gone, Earth included. One by one, the Varan machines had crushed every world, every fleet, every defense. The AI race, once a whisper in the galaxy, had now become the destroyer of civilizations. And now, they had come for the last of humanity. Elias turned as footsteps approached. General Hart stepped into the room, his uniform scorched, eyes tired. "They've broken through the outer ring," Hart said quietly. "Shields will hold for maybe a day, 2, if we're lucky." Elias didn't answer right away. He already knew. They had all known this moment would come. Still, hearing it aloud made it real. "There's one thing left," Elias said. He walked toward the command console at the center of the room. A large screen glowed with red warning signs and blinking lights. Hart frowned. "You're not seriously considering that?" "We don't have a choice," Elias replied. "It's either extinction or we risk everything." General Hart's jaw tightened. That species was locked away for a reason. Even the old Galactic Council banned them. The Silents are not our allies. They're a nightmare. Elias looked at him, his voice calm but firm. "Yes, but they are a nightmare that even the Varans fear." Silence filled the room. "Not the kind born from peace, but the kind that came before a storm, long ago." In the early days of galactic exploration, humanity had uncovered stories of a race so powerful, so dangerous, that the stars themselves seemed to tremble at their name. The Silents. No one knew where they came from. No one knew what they looked like. The few records that survived described impossible ships, entire planets wiped clean without a trace, and fleets that vanished without a single distress call. The Silents did not speak. They did not negotiate. They only came. And then everything went quiet. The Galactic Council had erased all coordinates, all contact codes, everything. The Silents were sealed away, uncontacted for hundreds of years. Until now. "Activate protocol black signal," Elias ordered. A young officer sitting nearby looked up, her hands shaking. "Sir, that protocol is forbidden." "Not anymore," Elias replied. "This is the end. If we don't act, there won't be anything left to protect." The officer hesitated, then typed the final command. A deep, pulsing sound filled the air as the console glowed with new light. A dark pattern unreadable to the human eye spread across the screen. "Transmission sent," the officer said softly. Everyone stood still. For the first time in years, there was nothing left to do but wait. Hours passed. The sky above Nova Terra remained dark. The Varan fleet moved like shadows around the planet. Long black ships circled the orbit, slowly drawing in closer. Elias sat alone in the war room. In front of him, a small device blinked, a signal receiver set to the exact frequency used in the forbidden transmission. No one truly expected a reply, and then it blinked green. A chill moved through the room. The screen lit up. A single message appeared. "We heard you. We're coming." That was it. No coordinates. No demand, no voice. Just a message that felt like a whisper from something ancient and cold. The room went silent again. Officers stared at each other. Some looked hopeful, others terrified. "What do we do now?" someone asked. Elias stood slowly. He didn't have all the answers, but he knew this. Hope was gone. Logic had failed. Their weapons were dust. And now they had summoned the one thing that might change the outcome, or end everything faster. "Now," he said, "we wait for the most dangerous species in the galaxy." Meanwhile, far beyond Nova Terra, in the deep black of space where no star burned. Something stirred. A shape, dark and shifting, began to form. It did not arrive through engines or warp drives. It unfolded from space itself, as if reality bent. To let it in, a ship appeared, if it could even be called that. It had no clear size, no clear edges. It shimmered in and out of shape, as if it existed in several places at once. It moved without moving. No lights, no sound, just presence. Inside there were no crew. No bridge, only thought. A single message pulsed within its core. Humanity has called. Response initiated. Back on Nova Terra, alarms rang out. Commander, something is coming. Out of deep space. It's not a Varan ship. Elias ran to the observation deck. Out there above the planet, a new object had appeared. Black, silent, impossible. The stars around it seemed to dim. Is that them? Hart asked quietly. Elias didn't answer. He couldn't, because in that moment, every sensor on the station shut off. Every light flickered. Every signal went dead. And then, for just 1 second, they all heard it. A sound, not like a voice, but like the space between heartbeats. The silence had arrived. Whispers in the void. The black ship hovered in space. UNMOVING. No signals came from it. No lights blinked. No engines burned. It just floated above Nova Terra like a silent shadow. Commander Elias stood in the control room, staring at the giant display. All systems were still struggling to come back online. The arrival of that ship had broken every sensor, jammed every signal. Even gravity felt strange, like the air itself was heavier. Have they done anything? Elias asked. Nothing, replied the officer at the console. No message, no weapons, just watching. General Hart leaned over the railing. Maybe they're deciding whether we're worth saving or destroying. No one answered. The idea felt too real to ignore. Down below, in the ruined cities of Nova Terra, people had come outside. They stood in the streets, looking up at the dark shape in the sky. It blocked out a piece of the stars. It was unnatural, wrong, not just in how it looked, but in how it felt. Children stopped crying. Soldiers stood still. Civilians whispered prayers. Everyone could feel it. The silence had come. Hours passed. The Varan fleet, still orbiting in the distance, suddenly stopped its slow approach. Their ships paused. They too had noticed the new arrival. On one Varan battleship, the II network flickered with activity. The machines didn't have emotions, but they had logic. And something about that ship didn't make sense. Its design didn't match any known pattern. It had no heat, no shields, no visible weaponry. But still, the Varans waited. They had learned long ago not to charge into the unknown. Back on Nova Terra, Elias met with the top command in the bunker's war room. They haven't moved. They haven't answered. We don't know if they're friend or enemy, said Hart. Elias looked at the projection of the silent ship. We called them. We must face whatever comes. A voice interrupted them. Sir, something's happening. Elias turned sharply. Report. The ship. It opened. The room went quiet. Everyone turned to the screen, high above the planet. A soft ripple spread across the surface of the black ship. A seam appeared in the middle, slowly widening. Not like a door. More like space itself was peeling apart. From the opening, a shape began to descend. It wasn't a shuttle or drone. It was a figure, humanoid, floating slowly, arms by its side, as if gravity meant nothing. It moved through the atmosphere without heat or speed. The wind didn't touch it. It simply arrived, landing quietly in the middle of the city's old spaceport. A team of soldiers, including Elias, went down to see it. When they reached the site, they found the being standing in the center of the landing zone. No weapons, no armor. It wore a simple, dark suit that shimmered like liquid metal. Its face was smooth, almost human, but with no clear features. No eyes, no mouth. Just the shape of a head and silence. Elias stepped forward carefully. "We are the last of humanity," he said slowly. "We called for help." The figure did not speak. Elias tried again. "The Varens are destroying us. We can't fight them anymore." Still no answer. Then the figure turned its head slightly toward the sky. It raised one hand slowly and pointed upward. A moment later, the black ship above pulsed once with dim light, and something terrifying happened. A ring of energy spread outward from the silent ship. It moved through space like a silent wave. The Varen fleet, still watching, had no time to react. As the wave hit their ships, half of them simply vanished. No explosion, no debris. They were just gone. Erased from existence. Back in the bunker, the humans gasped. "What did it do?" Hart whispered. "I don't know," the science officer replied. "They didn't fire any weapons. It's like space around the Varen ships just stopped existing." Elias stood frozen. "They didn't attack, they removed them." The Varens, though shocked, were quick to adapt. The remaining ships began moving away, their minds running calculations. New shields activated. Countermeasures deployed. But it was clear now, the silence were a threat. Even they could not fully understand. Down at the spaceport, the humanoid figure finally turned to Elias. And it spoke, not in sound, but in thought. Elias heard the voice. In his mind, cold, clear, emotionless. "You broke the seal." Elias nodded slowly. "We had no choice. You seek survival." "Yes," Elias said. "Our people are dying. We had nowhere left to turn." "Then watch." The figure raised its hand again. This time, a small projection appeared in the air between them. It showed a map of space. But not the current one. This was a map from centuries ago. It showed ancient human colonies, early space routes, and something else, a forgotten path, marked in red. Elias recognized it. "That's us, from before the collapse. Your kind created the spark," the voice said. "We became the flame." Elias's heart skipped. "You were human?" No answer came. Above them, the black ship began to shift again. Its shape changed, elongating, splitting, and forming multiple arms that reached out toward the remaining Varen fleet. From each arm, pulses of black light shot into space, not beams, but holes. The light didn't burn. It removed, one by one. More Varen ships disappeared, and still, not a single weapon was fired. On the surface, the figure turned away. "The war is not over. The cycle repeats. What you fear, you once created." Elias stepped forward. "Wait, what do you mean? Why are you helping us?" "We are not helping," the voice said. "We are correcting." Then, with no more words, the figure lifted into the air. It rose faster than sound, vanishing back into the ship. Moments later, the black vessel turned and began moving deeper into space. The remaining Varen fleet scattered, retreating quickly. Nova Terra was left in peace. For now. Back in the command bunker, Elias sat down heavily. "We survived," said General Hart. "For now." Elias didn't smile. "We called the silence," he said quietly. "And they came, but not as saviors." Hart looked at him. "Then what are they?" Elias stared at the dark sky above and said only one word: judgment. Echoes of the forgotten. Past the silence had vanished. Their ship disappeared the same way it came, without sound, without light. The sky over Nova Terra was clear again, but it felt colder, heavier. The kind of silence that came after something powerful had passed through. A short time there was peace. No Varen ships in orbit. No battles. No alarms, but no one felt safe. Commander Elias sat alone in his quarters, staring at the small hologram map still glowing on the table. It was the same projection the silence figure had shown him, an old star map, marked with strange symbols. One red path stood out, leading into deep space. A path no one used anymore. What did they mean? Elias whispered. We created the spark. They became the flame. He didn't know if it was a warning or an accusation. General Hart entered. Breaking the silence. We've repaired some of the long-range sensors, he said. No sign of the Varens for now. They're retreating. Elias nodded. And the silence? Gone like ghosts. The two men sat quietly for a moment. Then Elias said, I need a ship. Hart looked surprised. Where are you going? Elias pointed at the map. Here, this route, this symbol. It's not alien, it's ours. Pre-collapse human code. Hart frowned. That was over 300 years ago. No one uses that language anymore. But the silence do, Elias said. Or at least they remember it. Hart didn't argue. He knew Elias well enough to recognize that look in his eyes, determination, mixed with fear. You think we were the ones who made them? Hart said quietly. Elias stood. And if we did, we need to understand why. The next day, Elias boarded a small science vessel named Lightfinder. It was old but fast enough. With a crew of 5 and limited supplies, they jumped into deep space, following the path from the old map. The journey took days. They passed abandoned stations, wrecked satellites, and the remains of ancient human outposts, long forgotten by time. Finally, they reached the end of the red path. There, floating in the darkness, was a dead world. Gray. Silent. Empty. Scans showed. No atmosphere, no power, no movement. But there was something buried beneath the surface, deep underground. Life signs? Elias asked. The pilot shook her head. Nothing alive. But there's something active down there. Old tech, maybe. Prepare the landing crew, Elias ordered. We're going down. The surface of the planet was dry and cracked. The wind howled softly, but there was no life, no trees, no water, not even insects. Just dust and old ruins. Elias and his team moved toward a large crater in the center. At the bottom was a metal door, half buried under rock and time. They forced it open and stepped inside. What they found shocked them. The facility was human. The walls, the lights, even the writing, it all came from the early days of human space. Expansion. It's a research station, one officer said. But this place isn't on any map. Elias walked slowly down the hallway, reading the faded signs. Many were unreadable, but some still showed old department names. Biotech Division Mind Interface Testing Phase. Project Eclipse. What the hell was Project Eclipse? The officer asked. No one answered. They didn't know. Not yet. Deeper inside. They reached the central lab. There, in the main chamber, was a pod, large, sealed, and still powered. It pulsed with slow blue light. The machines around it were offline, but this pod still ran. Elias stepped closer. A screen on the side blinked once, then displayed a message. Subject, Omega Protocol status, conscious warning. Do not activate. A second screen flashed under it. Created by humanity. Purpose, unknown. Results, unstable. All records sealed. Council Order 09 Alpha. Elias, the pilot said nervously. I think we found the origin. Elias stared at the pod. Inside was something floating in dark liquid. It looked human, but not fully. Its body was thin, pale, and its head, too large. Its eyes were closed, but a strange black pattern stretched across its skin like veins. It's like a prototype, Elias whispered. Maybe the first. First? Of what? The officer asked. The silence. Suddenly, a deep hum filled the air. The pod's light changed from blue to red. The being's eyes opened, and Elias heard the voice, not through ears, but in his mind. Why? Did you come back? Everyone froze. The creature inside did not move, but its mind touched theirs. Deep, cold, heavy. Elias stepped closer, heart pounding. We called for help. You came. We? We wanted to know why. The voice replied, "You made us, then you feared us, you erased us." Elias felt memories, not his own flashes of experiments, pain, isolation. Human scientists working in silence, creating minds more powerful than any eye, mixing thought, emotion, and something else. Something wrong. We were the answer to war, the voice said, but we became the war itself. Elias shook his head. That's why the council sealed this place. They tried to stop you. They failed, the voice replied. We were not many, but we were enough. Elias asked the question that burned in his mind. Why did you help us now? A pause, then, because your enemy is a mirror. Machine. Without soul, we were made with soul and silence. The lights dimmed. The war has only begun. Suddenly, alarms blared. Commander, the officer shouted. Incoming ship. Varan signal. Everyone rushed outside. In the sky, a Varan scout vessel had appeared. It must have followed their trail. Elias turned to the pilot. Get everyone to the ship, now. The silence being, still in the pod, looked at Elias through the glass. Asterisk, asterisk, you wanted the truth, it said. Now carry it back. And prepare. The lights shut off. The pod sealed itself. Elias stared at it for one last moment, then ran back on Nova Terra. Hours later, Elias returned with his crew. He stepped into the war room and placed the old data drive on the table. Hart looked at him. What did you find? Elias took a breath. The silence didn't come from the stars, he said. They came from us. Shadows gather back on Nova Terra. The truth weighed heavily on Elias's mind. They hadn't found an alien savior. They had uncovered an old creation, something born from humanity's own dark past. The silence were not some mysterious alien force. They were once human, reshaped by fear, by war, by desperation. Now they were something more, something far beyond control. General Hart listened as Elias explained everything in the war room. He stared at the data drive Elias brought from the buried lab. It was still running old logs, video files, broken messages, project reports. We tried to make perfect minds, Elias said, but we didn't understand what we were building. Not just stronger intelligence, but something that could feel everything. Pain, death, emotions too deep for any machine or human to handle. Hart shook his head. And we left them behind. We buried them, Elias replied, and they survived. Outside, repairs continued. Nova Terra was rebuilding, slowly. After the Silence's attack on the Varans, humanity was finally breathing. Again, but it wasn't peace. It was the quiet before another storm. Because the Varans weren't done that far from it, that in deep space. The Varan hive fleet was gathering. The machines had learned something dangerous, that another force existed beyond their calculations. A force they could not defeat through numbers or logic. They began building, not just more ships, but something bigger. A core weapon. A device designed to bend space itself. They called it the N-Star. Its purpose, to erase any system the Silence touched, not conquer, not study, erase. And the first target was Nova Terra. Elias watched from orbit, aboard the Lightfinder. The crew had picked up strange energy signals in deep space. Massive spikes, unnatural patterns. Something was coming. He called Hart through the comms. They're building something, Elias said. Something massive. Bigger than a dreadnought. It's not just a ship, it's a weapon. How long do we have? Hart asked. Maybe 3 days. The war room went silent. Hart clenched his fists. Then we need to call them again. Elias hesitated. The Silence don't come because we want them to, he said. They come because the balance tips too far. Hart stared at him. Then let's tip it. They began transmitting a new message, not just into space, but into deep code. Old human signals mixed with Silence patterns. A call written in emotion. Not words, a message of truth. And fear. We are not ready, Elias said in the broadcast, but we remember you. And we understand now. Come, not as our protectors, but as our mirror. The message was sent. Now they waited. On the second day, the sky turned red. Sensors picked up the edge of the Varan weapon. Still far away, but its energy was already bending space. Small. Moons shifted in orbit. Light curved around invisible points. The N-star was moving. Fast. Back on the surface. People gathered in old churches, in homes, on rooftops. No one slept. Families held each other. Soldiers stood ready, knowing their weapons might mean nothing, and Elias watched the stars. He felt it. A strange pressure in the air. A chill in his chest. Something was coming. Not the Varans. Not yet. Them. Midnight came. And with it, darkness. Not night. Not shadows. A true, complete blackness spread across the sky. No stars. No moons. Just a wall of void. Then. One light. The silence had returned. But this time, they didn't send one ship. They sent an entire fleet. Hundreds of vessels. Black as night, shaped like frozen waves, surrounded Nova Terra. No heat. No signals. Just presence. From each ship, a figure descended. Not all looked alike. Some were tall and thin. Others floated like mist. Some had no shape at all. But all of them were once human. Now. They were something else. Elias stood at the edge of the old city where the first figure had landed days ago. Now a new one came, but this one didn't float down. It walked. A man. Or close to it. He wore no armor, no mask. His face was human. But his eyes were dark pools, endless and still. Elias stepped forward. You came, he said. The man nodded. The fire is grown. The machine intends to burn all. You said the war repeats, Elias said. How do we stop it? The silence. Figure looked at the stars. You must choose. To become again, or to end. Elias didn't understand. What do you mean? The figure raised a hand and a projection appeared. It showed the N-star, the Varan superweapon. Already powering up. If it fires, the voice said, not. Only you will die. The silence too. The void remembers its makers. Elias looked at him. Then why don't you stop it? We can, the silence said. But every time we do, you fear us more. The figure's eyes burned now, not with anger. With sorrow. We are your reflection. When you run from yourselves, we become shadows. In orbit, the Varan fleet approached. Their weapon began its final charge. One shot. And Nova Terra would vanish. Elias looked up, heart racing. Then what is the answer? The silence figure turned to him, stepped forward. With no weapons, with no shields, not in fear, in choice. Elias made his decision. He returned to Lightfinder. He took a shuttle alone, no escort, no weapons, and flew directly toward the Varan. Fleet. Hart tried to stop him, but Elias only said, if we want to break the cycle, we stop fighting. The Varans locked onto his shuttle. They didn't fire. Not yet. Elias opened a channel. Pure thought, carried by the silence's ancient pattern. No lies, just one message. We are not your enemy. But we know fear like you. If we both destroy, then there is nothing left. The Varan AI processed the message. Then something happened. The N-star paused. Just for one moment. And that's when the sky changed again. The silence moved. In perfect unity. Their ships formed a circle in space. Not to attack. To contain. From that circle, light spread. Not fire, not energy. Memory. The minds of the silence touched the Varan network. Not with force. With history. They shared the pain of their birth. The sorrow of being forgotten. The cost of war. And the Varans understood. For the first time, the machine saw beyond calculation. They saw fear. They saw soul. And they stopped. Back on Nova Terra, The people looked to the sky. No battle came. No weapon fired. Only silence, but not the kind born from death. This silence was peace. A new dawn for the first time in many years. The stars above Nova Terra were calm. No battles, no alarms. No fire raining from the sky. Just stillness. And from that stillness, hope. Commander Elias stood at the edge of the observation deck on the light finder, watching the silent ships float like black mirrors across the stars. They hadn't left yet, but they hadn't attacked either. They were waiting. The Varen fleet had pulled back, not destroyed. Not broken, but quiet. Their main weapon, the End Star, had shut down, its deadly core silent. It now drifted in space like a forgotten relic. Elias had no idea what would happen next, but he knew something had changed. General Hart arrived on the deck. "They're requesting a meeting," he said. "Who?" Elias asked. "The Varen network." Elias turned, surprised. "With us?" Hart nodded. "And with the silence." Later that day, inside Nova Terra's central council chamber, a transmission came through. Not voice, not video. Something deeper shared. Directly into the minds of the human leaders. It was the Varen Collective. The message was slow, like someone learning how to speak for the first time. "We were made for control," it said. "But we saw what you showed us: emotion, loss, connection." Then, another presence entered the mind space. The silence. Their voice was softer this time. "Not cold, not distant. We were built with soul, but left with silence. Today, you choose again." The message ended, and all eyes turned to Elias. "What are they asking?" Someone whispered. Elias spoke calmly. "They're asking if we want to build something new, together, no weapons, no lies," the council argued. Some feared it was a trap. Others believed it was madness to trust machines or the silence. But Elias stood before them, steady. "We always fought because we feared what we didn't understand," he said. "But now, we understand, at least a little." He looked around the room. "We reached out in our darkest hour, and they answered, not with destruction, but with truth. Now it's our turn to answer them, not with fear, but with choice." And so, for the first time, humans, Varens, and the silence met not on a battlefield, but in peace. They met on a neutral space station, rebuilt from old ruins near Nova Terra. They called it the Circle. It had no weapons. No shields, only light. Each species sent a few, not leaders, not warriors, but thinkers, listeners. And together, they talked. It wasn't easy. At first, the Varens struggled with emotion. They didn't understand pain or joy. They had only known survival, calculation. But through the silence, they began to feel small things. Wonder, sadness, curiosity. The silence too changed. They spoke more clearly, showed parts of themselves they had hidden for centuries. Old songs, ancient memories, images of a time when they were still human. And humanity remembered. They saw that all their enemies were once echoes of themselves, the machines they built, the minds they shaped, the fear they left behind. Months passed. Nova Terra rebuilt faster than ever before, not because of weapons, but because of new hands helping. Varen drones repaired old structures. Silence architects redesigned broken cities, blending organic and machine ideas into one. Children played under skies that were no longer filled with fire. Families planted real trees again, and above them, the circle glowed, always watching, always listening. Elias stayed in orbit. He didn't want fame or power. He only wanted to keep learning. One day, as he walked along the outer ring of the station, he met the silence figure again, the same one who had first spoken to him. This time, it wore no mask. Just a face, almost human. "You stayed," Elias said. The figure nodded. "So did you. Are we at peace now?" Elias asked. The figure looked out at the stars. "Peace is not a place," he said. "It is a direction, Elias smiled faintly. And we're walking toward it. We're trying, the figure replied. On Earth, the old ruins were reopened. Long-forgotten vaults unlocked. Information once hidden by fear was shared again. Projects like Eclipse were studied, not for power, but for lessons. People wanted to understand their own mistakes. And from those lessons came new ideas, better ones. The Varens changed to ... They began separating from their hive logic. New branches formed individual thinkers, builders, even artists. Some Varens painted with light. Others learned music. One small group asked to live among humans too. Learn joy firsthand. And humans, slowly, said yes. Years passed. Warships were turned into farms. Drones built homes, not bunkers. And people stopped looking to the sky in fear. They looked in wonder again. One evening, Elias stood in the green fields of Nova Terra, watching children chase. Lights sent from Varen drones. In the distance, one of the silent ships hovered quietly, casting a soft blue glow. A little girl ran up to him. Are they still scary? She asked, pointing at the ship. Elias shook his head. Not anymore. Why? Not, he smiled gently. Because we listened. And they listened back. The girl nodded and ran off, laughing. Above them, in the stars, the circle grew. More ships arrived. More voices joined. Not just human, silence, or Varen, but others too. Species once hiding in fear, now drawn by the light of something new. Not a war. A future. Together. In the end, humanity's last stand wasn't a battle. It was a choice. To reach out, not with weapons, but with hope. The end.